a new episode of Carolyn Talks. And today I am joined by filmmaker Poppy Garden to discuss her new short film, For Your Consideration, which has screened at multiple film festivals throughout 2020 going into 2021. And now for our discussion today, it has been released on Vimeo for viewing, and that would have been June the 28th. So we'll discuss the film. But before then, I'll just like Poppy to tell us a little bit about herself and how she got into filmmaking and creating this film in particular. So, Poppy?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Poppy Gordon here with For Your Consideration, launching yesterday, premiering yesterday, the 28th, as you mentioned, on Vimeo and both Omleto as well, which I guess is a premier destination for short films for distribution and where people can watch them. So it's on Omleto and Vimeo For Your Consideration. It's about close to 14 minutes. And yeah, it's had a great festival run. I've been very positively surprised by that. I didn't really expect it to get in any place when I made it. So I was very happy that it got picked up. And yeah, it was an interesting year to release my first short, I have to say. I really know how to pick a good one. So I was all excited and I was like, yay, let's go to film festivals and, see how an audience reacts live to my film and meet other people in the same community that I want to be a part of and all of that. And then all of a sudden I landed at CineQuest where it was premiering and I found out that it was being canceled as I was landing. So I was like, oh, okay. So it had a great run, but mostly, some physical locations, but a lot of online since we had the pandemic. And so I wasn't really able to see so much how a live audience, especially in groups, kind of reacts to the film. So having it launched now, and also, Omleto is also on YouTube. So it's the first time I'm really seeing people react to it. It already has, like, in one day, over 20,000 views and tons of comments. And so I'm gleaning a lot from all of that already from the comments. People are very honest on YouTube. They don't hold back the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, and I always knew it was going to be a controversial film as well. So it's kind of cool to just see that interaction. And I've been very lucky in that it's also received some terrific press. And it's been really through a lot of the press that I've been able to have an exchange and a dialogue with, the public in that kind of a way, which is really very rewarding. So it's been a great run, even though we've had the pandemic. In a sense, I've gotten a lot of feedback in other ways.
The thing with this film, and like you mentioned, this is your first short film, so I have to ask, because the topic is about three, I believe it's set in LA. So there are three LA socialites. They're obviously daughters of rich people in either the film industry and other industries in LA, and they just randomly decide they're gonna make a woke film and for Oscar consideration. And it's interesting that this film came out the time it did, because it's talking like the film they talk about, they discuss should they make it about the crisis at the border, about about the Mexicans crossing the border and the treatment of children in the detention centers, and then they switch gears and say, okay, how about we make it about a Black woman, and then she has what they want to quote one of them, a baby daddy who's in prison, falling into all these stereotypes. But when I was watching it, I was thinking, if you had made this film like this year 2021, I could see these women talking about making a film about the COVID pandemic and about the crisis, and then maybe even about the election, and or what happened in February, on February the 6th, where the insurrectionists at the Capitol. And I was just thinking, if you had made this film like now, these women would be having these same kind of conversations. And then it's just like, could you just tell me a bit about your decision to have it not only about these three socialites, but the specific topics they picked? Because as I said, they could have talked about the 2016.
They really could have. And I mean, it's something I didn't ever think about it as episodic or a feature, but I think it definitely could. you can pretty much put in anything there. And Aldo and I were kind of, he's my writing partner, we were laughing. We're like, the next part of the film would be like the apology tour, like them apologizing about the films that they made ultimately, but yeah, we wrote it, I don't even know, like maybe 3 years ago, and it's been quite the process, like from concepting it to writing it to producing and then post-production. It's when you care about all the details and getting everything right, it's definitely a process. The writing, also, we wrote it and then we also workshopped it with actors. So it was very kind of Smith curated, calculated whimsy in a sense, how we approached it. So yeah, they definitely, they realize that the films that tend to do very well at, award ceremonies, festivals, all alike, the ones that get the most kind of pats on the back tend to be, kind of social consciousness raising films that have to do with, examining the disenfranchised, the themes of poverty, of marginalization, trauma, all sorts of just misery, really, and strife and difficulty. Those are the films that tend to do quite well. And in terms of what, as a culture and as a society, we are, recognizing as meaningful and important. And since they also would like to be recognized as filmmakers and win awards and have, career paths in the same industry that likely their parents are also from, they try to kind of game the system and figure out who has it the worst at the moment, whose worst experience hasn't been done before, quote unquote, that they, in a sense, whose misery can they too exploit for their own personal gain, as in recognition and glamour. And that's their motivation. And that's kind of how we set up the story, and that's what they try and do. And they kind of run through the different ideas that they have. And obviously they're trying to be very woke, but in the process of trying to be woke, they're also horribly unwoke in how they're going about that. And yeah, that was, I guess, it was just an irony that I felt like I was being surrounded by at the time, already, a lot. And I had already been surrounded by that, for a while. And it kind of, I guess it got to me, and it bubbled over in the form of a creative artistic expression. And that's what we decided to move forward with, since it was kind of bubbling over in that way. It felt good to kind of release all of that into this film, which also is somewhat, it's somewhat in your face, but it's also somewhat nuanced.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's almost like a sketch comedy in the fact that you contain so much, I guess you could say, social commentary and use comedy and unintentional comedy, because these women aren't intending to be funny. Like the things they're saying and the way they're behaving and even their mannerisms, to them, they're serious. They're like, we're being serious artisans right now. We're creatives, we're creators. But like to us, to like the audience, and like anyone who was sitting down watching them who isn't, I would say, from their social circles, would be looking at them and say, these women cannot be serious. You have got to be joking. So it's almost kind of like a sketch comedy in that way, where you pack so much into such a short space of time. And like you did mention, it could be episodic, because I could see something like this spanning out into like maybe like a mini series, where it would be like, what, 6 episodes, like their journey from the conception of the film to like maybe even making it into the festival circuit, till then, to the point where someone catches them and says, you know what, this is full of foolishness. And the reason I would say they would make it to the festival circuit, because one of the topics that is inferred within the script is nepotism in the industry, where these women are all connected to someone who has power to give them the wherewithal to make this film. And you could see it making it to the festival circuit because there's no one that would be willing to check them. And even if they are, they don't have the power to be the person to say this is foolishness.
But that's how a lot of stuff has gotten out there and does get made.
Yep.
And, you know, I mean, you do kind of wonder, you know, you do kind of wonder how, you know, how do certain things get to a certain point where certain things happen, and you scratch your head and you're like, why did nobody in that boardroom speak up? You know, why? I mean, there are so many, you know, checks and balances to the risks that go involved financially in, you know, making a creative piece, if it be a film or a commercial or whatever, you know, and you just really wonder, like, somebody must have noticed, you know, like, look at the Kendall Jenner Pepsi fiasco. It made me just scratch my head of like, how did everybody look at that script and was like, yep, that's a great idea, guys. Absolutely. Let's put millions of dollars into making this. It just dumbfounded me.
Yeah, you use that as an example, but it's not only even as an example, like TV shows or films, and you'll be like, this is a show about nothing. Like these characters are vapid. Why is there a whole show about to use? And I'll use like if you're going to talk about like the Keeping Up with the Kardashians and those type of shows, like, and then you even like even more recently the girl, the TikTok dancer, quote unquote, because of what she was doing wasn't really dancing, but now she has a whole reality show in the same vein as the Keeping Up with Kardashians. You're like, millions of dollars is being spent to produce a show about her and her family. Some people that, it may sound cruel and me, but people really don't care about it. They care about it and her family and what she did, because one, she hijacked the dance of a young black girl, and she's the one getting all the props and the accolades and the whole TV show about it. But then you're like, this is exactly what you're talking about. Like people who have no real talent, but they have the connections because she was invited on a talk show. So people are like, oh, so if she's invited on a talk show, so.
And it does make you wonder about, quote unquote, this matrix that we've created, that we live in, you know, like what are we rewarding and why, and how is you know, the playing field is not equal, and it's not fair. It's definitely not equal, and it's definitely not fair, and that's just a fact. And you know, what's everybody's responsibility in, you know, in that, and especially people that can make a difference, that are at the helm of things, that are cultural gatekeepers, like what can they do to, you know, not propagate this matrix that we've kind of created for ourselves a bit. And it's, I mean, the film is not trying to lecture or tell people what to do or how to behave. It's more just like thought provoking. And that was my hope, at least. And to also be sensitive to the trepidatious gray area of navigating this minefield that we've created and that we find ourselves in. But it does make you wonder, you know, does this have to exist this way? You know, is there any way that you know, change can occur and happen in a more meaningful way? You know, that where representation doesn't feel like representation. You know, this kind of tokenizing of change is what I'm seeing in a lot of different areas, where it's the change is kind of a performative pile up, so to say, but we're not seeing it filter down in giving people opportunities to kind of, you know, tell their story, if it be in film, or if it be in politics, or if it be in business. You know, I'm not seeing it to the as much as I would like. I even just recently was watching, it just came out on HBO. I think it was HBO, the college campus scandal,
Mm.
the that where it was kind of like the very elite rich people were bribing their way
Yeah.
into having their kids placed at the kind of elite colleges, and that was really infuriating. And it was really it did make me really shake my head, and I'm sure just a lot of people felt the same way, because especially colleges are supposed to be institutions of learning and wisdom, and I mean, just betterment and civilization and just everything. Like, they embody so many wonderful ideals as a society that we hold on to, education. And how is education being part of this like capitalist system where rich people can buy their way into testing and better SAT scores and fake placements, at places and all of that, and seeing that kind of unmasked in that way, and how things kind of operate, even if it's not a scam, even if it's not bribery, the fact that there's this donation system going on behind the scenes, where you're donating and you may or may not get in, and then it's like it's definitely really upsetting to see that. And I think that my short touches on all of those types of things, in a myriad of ways.
Mm. It does, because like the same show you're talking about, I remember it's I can't remember her name, but it's the actress from Full House. And I think one of the other people involved was Felicity Huffman, I believe. Also, she was involved in it. And the things is like when you get these kind of shows that are being made, like people like when that happened, like people on Twitter were calling it from early that it would be turned into a story and it would be turned into a show. And people were like immediately said we knew that it was going to be about the white women and the white people involved in these scandals, and it was going to be about the people with the power, but it's not going to be about how these kind of situations affect the actual students. It's not going to be showing from the perspective of the students who don't have, how hard they have to struggle to get
It
get
did
these same
show that,
opportunities.
though. It did show that, though. Maybe not
Oh,
to
it
the
did.
extent that it could have or whatever, but it
Yeah.
did. It did show it to some extent, and maybe that would have been done better if they had really tracked people trying to get in,
Mm-hmm.
and what goes into that, and as well as tracking the the rich white people. But what was also I mean, the kids of the rich white people didn't even want to go to those schools.
Exactly.
Like,
They don't care. And like they would rather be
want to go.
outserving
And
than they
then you
want to
have
do
these
certain
other
things.
kids that struggle so much and work so hard and want to go, that don't just have makeup contracts for millions of dollars just because they're the daughters of so and so, for no reason at all, really. You know, and they're getting deprived of that. So, in a sense, I mean, I think there were a lot of things that contributed to the making of the film, from seeing injustices in that way to, reading about things like the scandal with Microsoft. I'm not sure if you heard about that, but it was like during the Black Lives Matters protests that were going on, that are still going on, that have been going on for a long time. And I guess it was like their agency, I think it was McCann or something like that, sent out an email to an African American artist whose name I'm forgetting right now, but I'm bad with names in general. And they wrote her and they said, "Hey, do you mind like making a BLM mural for us right now while the protests are going on and this issue is still relevant?" And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
wait, like rewind, like what? Like, what did you just say? Like,
Yeah.
it is so incredibly, shockingly tone deaf, and it's just like, okay, you're trying to make a statement, you're trying to be part of a change, but really, like, you're Microsoft and you have a shit ton of money, you're a really big corporation, like, who's benefiting here? Who's you've never cared about causes in your life of your company in that way. You know what I mean? Sure, Bill Gates Foundation, not trying to knock that, but as a company, as a political company, you've never tried to be like, I'm Microsoft and I care about, you know, this political cause or this or that, you know, apolitical brand for the most part. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're trying to chime in and basically co-opt something that people are really upset about and care about, and you're doing it in this super afterthought kind of like clumsy, trite way that feels incredibly untrue, where it's like it would be better if you didn't do anything at all, you know.
Yeah, but that's how a lot of these big conglomerates operate. They see that you use the word trend, and that's I think that's all that is like mentioned in the film too. And like this is something that we talk about a lot on social media is a lot of these companies see activism and social justice as something trendy. It's like they see it as something temporary because they don't have any skin in the game. The stakes aren't raised for them, right? They're just like, oh, this is going to be an opportunity for us to make money. It's all about capitalism. Like, you know, like when
Yeah.
they had the black squares and people are saying, what is your black square going to do? Okay, you have a slogan.
I have a different perspective on the black square thing, but that's me. I don't have any problems with the black squares. There were a lot of people that, to my mind, also did the black squares, you know, early on before it was kind of a thing. And I'm not like that diehard the way a lot of other people are with the black squares. To me, that wasn't so much performative as much as it's like, do what you can. And if that's what you can do to express your solidarity, because I find the whole social media landscape to be so challenging. Like, how do you say something meaningful in this bite-sized, you know, mosh pit of insanity? How do you? Social media baffles me completely. So
It's a beast for sure. It's something that you got to learn that is I think is ever evolving one too.
So if you just feel comfortable putting up a black square because it's that whole milieu is so scary to you, and it also it's like, what do you say about this shit? What do you say that isn't just such a radical simplification of this stuff? So if you want to put a black square because that says what you want to say right now, that expresses just a form of solidarity, hey, that's better than nothing. If the you know if the Germans had stood up for the Jews en masse, you
Would
know,
have been a completely different
it would
situation for
it would have
sure.
been a different story. So for me being Jewish, I'm like, hey, anything fucking better than nothing to a certain extent.
Oh no, for sure. But it's just like when it comes to companies, like companies do they do have the power to make significant change and tip the scales because like I like
100%.
like for a company they're like oh like they're like okay paint a mural, okay sure, the money is going into the artist's pocket, yes fine, but is that all you're going to do? Fine, but it's not only like for Black Lives Matter. It's like what they do for Pride Month too. Like you know, they put out all the rainbow flags and all these things, but then their employees are still being disenfranchised. Their employees are still making less than minimum wage. Their employees barely have any benefits. They're not like you know like you want to show your support for these disenfranchised communities and the marginalized. How about you actually take the millions and the billions of dollars you have, and as you put up your flag and as you put up your black square and as you're paying people to paint murals,
Well,
you
that's what I mean.
actually
Not
funnel that
every
money
black
into
square is
activism.
equal in a sense. You know what I mean? In that sense, a black square can sometimes be performative and sometimes it can be genuine, you know?
Yeah.
But in those
Yeah, yeah.
instances that you're talking about, it's definitely, you know, very performative. And that's where I'm saying it's better to just be quiet if that's it, you know, if in a sense you're doing something in such a way that you're adding more harm than you are
Mhm.
good, that you're kind of further contributing to the problem in a way, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a you know, and I mean, I'm not that much a minority, but I am a woman, and I did see this kind of mad dash around people around our culture being like, oh wait, maybe it is weird that we don't have women in certain positions of power at a certain echelon and level. Let's, you know, quickly make up for that and you know, diversify our roster by adding, you know, um, females to things, so that we don't look like we have been part of the patriarchal kind of system of oppression.
Yeah.
When clearly they were. And really, it was, there's a way to kind of do something where you're creating lasting, meaningful change, and there's a way to do something where you're just covering your own ass because you don't want to be canceled or whatever, and you're doing something to cover your ass, and I think the two, it's very apparent, it's very easy to discern when somebody is saying, hey, we fucked up, we're really sorry, we want to be part of the solution, we're looking at ourselves and we're trying to figure out how we can make a meaningful, lasting impact. Or if you're just, part of the trend, and that's where what you were calling out when you said trend. And I did read an article recent, I guess it's an author, maybe his name was Tom Wolfe. I have to, again, I'm horrible with names, I have to look up names, but I think it was some writer in the 60s, and he coined the term radical chic.
Yeah, that I could, yeah, I
where,
don't know it, but like this, the term itself makes sense to me. Yeah.
where it just became like with the whole Jane Fonda thing, and in the 60s and 70s, it became really chic to be radical in a way. And so, I think we're kind of in the same place where all of a sudden we've had this kind of advent of radical chic again, where it's just so hot and so in to align yourself in certain ways with certain causes, and sometimes it goes right, and sometimes it can just go horribly wrong, aka my film, and all the various types of blunders that I set our cast up to experience or to go through. So
Yeah, like you mentioned, okay, so like, and it kind of ties in with like you mentioned, about like Jane Fonda and stuff, and like one of the lines in the film, I think it's said by Stacia, where she talks about the year the woman is gone, right? And I saw that as a reference to the Me Too movement, especially when it and when it has particularly gained traction around 2019, late 2018 going into 2019, and then like for almost that entire year, like as she did say, it's like a year of the women. That's when like women were having more courage to speak out against abuses and issues, not only in the film industry but in every industry. Like I'm a film critic, and like there were stories about women facing issues and confrontations and abuse within like film criticism and journalism. And then like you had multiple industries, like because like women are abused in every social climate, every industry. And it seemed like, and I you can almost pinpoint where it starts to die down, and that was with the Oscars in 2020. And like it happened with the pin, so like everyone was like at the Oscars with their Me Too pins. And then you had like time, and you had the time, no, sorry, not Me Too pin, it was the Time's Up pin. And I remember it was this big discourse, and people were saying, "Oh, it's the movement Me Too." And people were saying, "Well, Tarana Burke was talking about Me Too for the last 13 years, but now it's gaining traction." And then that's when it started to seem trendy, and that's when it started to seem like everything was about this. And then it started to slowly die down. And then you like, because of the people that I follow on Twitter, we were still talking about these, but we're still talking about Me Too now in 2021. We're like, it's never really ended for us. Same thing with Black Lives Matter. I'm a Black woman. Like Black Lives Matter has been a bit something for me from the moment I was born, especially now that I'm an adult, and like I'm more cognizant and aware of everything that's going on and how society treats me as a Black woman and my friends. And like for the women in the film, they're saying, "Oh, this is just trendy. Like we're just gonna do yoga and wake up one day and say, I'm gonna make a film about this and I'm gonna win an Oscars." And it's like they don't have any real idea of what being woke is. Like one of my notes in that one of the notes that I made is like they misused the term woke, and they appropriated it, but then they misused it and changed the word. And it kind of reminds me of the same thing with SJW, where social justice warrior.
Do they actually use the word in the script? I don't know that they use.
They said yeah, once I think it was Stacia.
Stacia,
They
yeah.
it said once, but it's it's not only in the film, but it happens like because I'm always on social media, so a lot of stuff that I see, and this is how I interact with so many people. Like the way how things like social justice warrior and even the Me Too movement, the term of the Me Too movement went from being something positive and representing change for women was then turned against us and made to make us feel like we are being aggressors against the against people who have done harm to women. It's like, oh, you're a Me Too or not, and it's like, why should that be anything bad? Why should a social justice warrior, someone who is for social justice, be considered bad? Why should being woke, as the term that we coined it, be considered bad? But this is like and I think it's something like it's done so subtly in the film where they talk about how these things happen in a flash and then it's over. And for the people that aren't harmed and aren't affected, they move on from it. They don't have any real, like I said earlier, any stakes in the game. So for them, it's just a trend. It's
what the film was saying, because a lot of all the main characters in the film are women, right? And so am I trying to say that all women are stupid? No. Am I trying to say that all women can't be successful filmmakers? No. But am I saying that ignorance doesn't take any hostages?
Mhm.
And that anybody has the ability to be ignorant if they fall into that moment? Yes. Anybody can be ignorant. It's very democratic in that sense. Or we all have our opportunities at ignorance if it finds us or if we find it. So that is definitely a part of it. And then especially it did kind of hint at the fact that all the characters are extremely well off, as you mentioned. They all do fit in a certain class, regardless of what their ethnicity is.
Yeah.
Or their sexual orientation. They all are of a certain class. And it questions, how does that affect things if change is ushered in and permitted and curated by all these gatekeepers of a certain echelon, and where that echelon also gets to decide how another echelon gets to be a part of their echelon when they are let in, what does that result in? And, we have seen that now with some people questioning the board, who are the voters of the Oscars? Who are the voters of the Golden Globes? Like, who are the people, that have the ability to shape our culture, and where are those decisions coming from?
Yeah, because I want to stick a bit to like our discussion about women because I do love that all of the characters are women, and like there's an interesting discussion of race and how race is perceived and how and I call it latent racism where these women and they're like a microcosm of society at large where they say and do things, but to them it's not overt, so they don't consider it racism. So like because there's a moment
They see themselves as quite woke.
yeah, that's the thing. They see themselves as woke and aware, but I'm like, really, you have a stunning lack of self-awareness because there's a moment where they're talking about making the film about a black woman and then have her having a baby in prison, and then she's like falling in love with this prison guard while she has a baby daddy, and it's like so many tropes, there's so many negative stereotypes about black women.
Her baby daddy,
Yeah.
even the language.
Yeah, they use the language, and it's like you know it's not a language from their culture and from their or anything they're familiar with saying, because you like one thing I think actresses do it so well, like the way they say certain words, you know that it's not the language of the characters. The use of baby daddy is said so awkwardly. This is not a word that she says, but she's repeating it because this is something she's heard in media.
I don't know. I still find my own. It's darkly funny, but I'm like, if you can't laugh at some of the shit, like I don't know.
It's true. I laugh because I giggle because I'm like, girl, I was like,
you shouldn't laugh at, but I mean, me having a Jewish identity, I guess we're pretty good at laughing at horrible things. We've practiced it quite well, and it's just one of when you can't do it, nothing else, to shake your head at something.
I laugh because there are moments where like, and it has a lot to do with the actresses. I think they did a really great job. Like their facial expressions were cracking me up. Like the way they would look at each other, it was almost like you could hear like, those old vaudeville shows, and you could hear
Yeah.
the music in the background signaling their expressions, and it was kind of like that. So I think they did a really good job. But there's like a moment where Stacey, she's like, "Is this racist?" She's like, "I think it's racist." And then one of the other women, she's like, "It's not." She's like, "But are we sure?" She's like, "This sounds like a really bad idea." And like her phone rings. I'm like, that's your clue that it is a bad. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. It is a bad idea. Y'all should stop this right now. But they keep going. And it's just like their intent, their story is about perpetuating harmful stereotypes, but they don't see it as that because they're like, we're telling a story about a woman struggling. I'm like, no, you're not. But they're so earnest in their wrongness. That's what makes it funny because like
Yep.
I mean, like we know there's like so many filmmakers and writers, like you can like novelists who write these kind of stories, and you're like, I'm telling an earnest story, and like you're different, and the reader will be like, really? You like, I'm sure like Stacey's the one voice of reason, and she's like, this is a bad idea. And then Siobhan comes in and they talk about, oh, like about the prison system. Siobhan is like, why would I know about the prison system? And I'm like, why would she? She's a black rich woman probably went to the same high school and universities that you did. How like why would she?
So
But that's like the
wrong.
perception.
I know, it's so wrong. I couldn't help myself since and I looked at some of the YouTube comments since it just went live yesterday, and some people love the film and really get it, and other people really don't. And it was really funny to me because a lot of them were like, some of them, the comments were really amazing. Like the comments were hilarious. You have to go check them out. Well, the film wasn't funny at all. What would have been funny is for somebody to walk on and call them all airheads and tell them that they're stupid and walk away. That would have been really funny.
That
I'm like,
wouldn't be funny because you'd just be like, why is this person being so aggressive? But if you have someone like Siobhan and Stacey, and even in the post credits, like there is someone who was like, okay, this is a bad idea. Like I think it's Tara. She's like, they approach her and she's like, oh, are you gonna do about the crisis at the moment the case
some
being kept
people
taken? And
didn't
they're like, oh, it's too dark.
some people didn't understand the satire aspect, and we're like,
Yeah,
the film is really racist.
it's telling you this is how these people are racist, and they're so racist they don't
And
even know they're
they're
racist.
like, or they're translating their dislike for the characters into the dislike for for the film. And for me, it's really funny. And somebody made a really funny comment that I loved, that was like, the film is like, what did they call? They called it, it's like woke plus Inception because it's so meta, and so they called it
Isn't
like
it?
wokeception.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Had me laughing. But yeah, some people didn't get the certain aspects of the film and just felt like it was like, wow, this film is so racist and politically incorrect and evil, and and it's really funny to see some people get satire and some people don't, or they just didn't follow it. And some people, like I said, they really loved it, and that was also nice to see. I always knew it was going to be somewhat controversial in that way, that not everybody, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. Like there's a lot of filmmakers that I love that I know a lot of my friends hate, and so it is what it is.
But that's the thing about film. Like we say, art is subjective, right? And like how a film is received is, I think a lot of it depends on where people are, the audiences emotionally, and what's going on around them in their environment and politically. Because I could love a film today, and then in like a year or so, I'd be like, wow, whoo, no, this was a bad idea. And a lot of it has to do with like where we are mentally and emotionally when we're watching a film. So like for a film like this, for some people, like because of everything that's going on in the world, like you got the pandemic, and then like the physical protests for Black Lives Matter are over because of the pandemic. Like people can't be out in the streets en masse. Like they were during like early up in the pandemic, but because things had, in my opinion, have not gotten better, people have realized the stakes are higher. But they're still using social media. They're still using like activism and advocacy and having campaigns and all this for Black Lives Matter. So for some people, like their nerves may be a bit more raw on what's going on. And then for others, if they're not necessarily Black, or if they're not a woman, or if they're not in the demographic being discussed, it would the context of what's being said and done is flies right over their heads. And then of course there are the people who are just haters for the sake of hating, you know. And then there are those who like discredit all of these same things that we're talking about. They don't care about Black Lives Matter, so they're going to see any film that's discussing it as trivial and unnecessary. They don't care about women's rights, so any film that discusses topics like that, they have no interest in, and they're just going to see it as being antagonistic. So that's the thing about film, like the way how people receive film is so varied. Like you can't ever predict how something will ever be received. Like a film could be perfection in my eyes, and then someone say that's utter crap, and it can be vice versa, right? And that's one of the things I love about film and media, because like we can sit down and have a discussion about this 14-minute film that you made, and our discussion is going all way has gone all way past 14 minutes about the film, and we haven't even touched on all the topics that you've talked about in the film, because like so because the way how we perceive things and the things that you are saying in your film, and I was saying other directors are saying in their films, is like these things are meant to create discussions. They're meant to make us think. They're meant to make us think about more than what we're seeing about, and what's being, I guess you could say, is meant to make you think about one thing, but that discussion can lead to discussions about others, and it helps people to
Sure.
realize
But
that.
also, what I really was very excited to help be a part of is instigate discussions that are more varied and nuanced and less white and black and new and binary in that way of like all or nothing, this or that, but like instead look at something from all the various angles and find the bridges,
Mhm.
find the commonalities and find the different aspects of things. And I feel like a lot of that gets lost in today's media landscape, from social media to how the news is, to how everything has just become like clickbait and quick easy biteable bits, and not everything fits into these boxes.
Yeah, no, it's true. A lot of social media definitely has its benefits, because like I use it to, because I'm isolated. I'm home by myself all day, and social media is the only way I get to talk to my friends and discuss film and TV and that kind of stuff. But then it has also created this landscape where people feel they can say any and everything without any real consequences. They can be as hateful and as mean as they want, and be as disingenuous as they want. Because like even when me and my friends we have discussions about film, like on Twitter, there will be people who will join the conversation strictly to be antagonists, and they're being disingenuous, and we're trying to have a honest conversation about whatever it is we're watching, but you're going to come in here just to disrupt. And that's where social media can that's one of the cons of social media, because it has, I think, created this atmosphere where people think they have permission to treat people however they want, and say whatever they want behind the screen of a phone or a laptop or whatever. And they don't have any, they've stopped caring, and and a certain lack of empathy has been created. But then to counter that, like I've met some amazing people because of social media. My career as a film critic has happened because of social media, and it's thriving because of social media. But like when you do have like films like this, like we do always have to be aware that like for you as a filmmaker, like you're saying that you find these comments as funny, but I'm sure there'll be moments where you'll be like, well, that was just unnecessarily mean and for no reason. And that you know that people are just being mean for absolutely no reason, just for the sake of being mean. And then like, but like going back to the film a bit, like what I said earlier about these, like I could see these women making it all the way to the film to the festival circuit, and they will stop, and the only thing that'll make them become aware is if someone says something that they see as being mean, but the person is just being honest and saying what you guys are doing, this is not art, quote unquote, and you're not being true about the story you're telling. You're just doing it for the accolades. You're just doing it for being you're gonna be, because you know you'll be awarded for the minimum effort, right? And like for them, they'll be like, that you're being not necessarily mean, but then it will be like, hopefully there'll come a moment where they listen to what the person is saying, and if not all three, maybe one or two. And I was thinking particular Siobhan, because I'm like, the Black woman, she's in this society, she's around these women, but like she's faced with racism, and because it's not overt, she might not feel that she has the right to say anything. And then in the process, like something may like, this is me reading like way into the future. I could see where the storyline goes beyond where the film ends, but I could see her just like one day be like, you know what, you women are toxic. and you're not good for my mental health as a woman and as a Black woman in particular. And what you are doing, if you're not going to listen to any suggestions that I have, like I would have to depart from you and our friendship would have to end. And I could see something like that because that's something that happens every day. Some things that we have to make choices and decisions and decide, is this the story I want to tell, and like what kind of artist I want to be. And that's just me like rambling, but that's kind of like where my thought process was as I was watching the film.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. No, I'm glad to hear that it's you know, that it's making you imagine where it could go, and the characters are living with you for a little while longer than the film. I think that's really nice to hear. We'll have to revisit that. A few journalists have said that they would like to see the feature of it, which was never something that we thought about, or episodic. But we've heard it now so many times that it would definitely be fun to work on if somebody wanted to support us in that way, for sure.
Hey, YouTube has become a fantastic platform for creating these kind of projects. Like I remember I said, it feels to me like a sketch comedy, and I could feel it like be like kind of like that's how Issa Rae started out. Issa Rae started out on YouTube, and she's like stretched her story into this amazing career, and then it kind of also reminded me of like a Black lady sketch show where they packed so much into like these short little skits and sketches that it was like this film I could see like six pieces and their journey just goes
yeah, for sure, for sure. I would love to work on that. That'd be so fine. But yeah, I mean, this is our first and my first foray into kind of this landscape. I'm a commercial film director otherwise, and I put my savings into this one. Definitely can't afford to keep doing that. So and in that sense, social media and the press is great. We're definitely looking for people to connect with in terms of just like other creative collaborators that would like from agents to screenwriters to actors. We're looking for just to be part of this kind of community and explore other creative projects. So we would love to turn this into like something short, episodic. I think that would be really fun. And we also have some other things that we're wanting to work on, and definitely this was kind of a piece that hopefully will allow us to make more pieces in some way or form to continue the conversation. So hopefully, that'll happen. Even if we don't get further support, then maybe it will have to be on my iPhone, but we'll do it.
Hey, that's possible. Matthew H. Harry's his first film was done like completely on iPhone.
Oh yeah, I know. We joked about that sort of thing in the film.
Yeah. I do a lot of my stuff on my cell phone.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank God for Android, because
Yeah.
I'm an Android person, not an Apple.
For sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, and for for talking about this film and all of that stuff.
Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been great.
Yeah, my newborn son is the new boss in this house. He decides on my schedule. He decides everything.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I don't have kids, but I used to be a nanny and I used to work in daycare and at a public school. Who knows when I'll go back to school because of this pandemic? But yeah, I know how it is. So it's perfectly fine.
You're doing just fine. You're doing just fine. I can't wait to check out your other podcasts as well. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for supporting, filmmakers like me. There's, it's very easy to kind of support a lot of people that are already very, established and famous. It's a lot more to support people that are emerging and that are new voices and that are untested. And you're definitely, part of, I think, what's making things better. So
thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, I try to talk to like independent, especially female female independent filmmakers. So that's one of my passions, just like hearing how women in the industry are like creating their work and coping and doing what they do, because let's face it, men get all the shine. Women got to support each other.
Very, very true. Very true. Yep, I can't disagree with you there.
Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been great.
Thank you so much, and you have a good rest of your day. Bye.
So everyone, this has been a new episode of Carolyn Talks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to all the other episodes. Whether this is the first one for you or if you've been with me from the beginning, Thank you so much for listening and spending time with me and my guests. This has been great. As I said, you can watch Poppy's film for your consideration on Vimeo and Leto. You can catch other episodes of this here on the But Why the Podcast channel.com, as well as other streaming platforms. And this one won't be on YouTube, but you can catch some of my other interviews for Carolyn Talks on my YouTube channel under my name, Carolyn Hines. That's Hinds. And you can see other interviews I've done for the AFCA virtual roundtables for the past year and a half. Recently, we've spoken to the creative team for High on the Hog on Netflix, as well as Dad, Stop You're Embarrassing Me, and also for David Makes Man on the OWN network, and like dozens of other interviews. And you can catch my Beyond the Romance podcast recaps on the podcast channel as well as the YouTube channel as well. I've been doing a lot, but I've been having a great time. And you can leave me comments on my YouTube channel, as well as visit my Twitter page at CarrieCNH12. That's CARIECNH12, and on Instagram as well. You can follow my drama life tweets with hashtag dramas with Carrie, as well as Saturday Night Sci-Fi, where every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, me and my co-host, we host a live tweet session where we watch and discuss the film, or a film where we watch and discuss our chosen film or TV show for the night. And that's hashtag Saturday Night Sci-Fi. Remember, every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you've seen what we're discussing or not, you can join in and leave a comment if you would like to. And I think that's it. Please stay safe and have a good day or night, depending on when you're listening to this.